Spokane Valley could become a sanctuary city of a different
Councilman
kind.
Caleb Collier says that this
I'm proposing that the city of Spokane Valley issue a proclamation stating that our city is a Second Amendment sanctuary city.
Welcome to the fire.
Today on Church and State, Unbroken, the untold story of Shen with Steve Lance. Hello, Christian Patriots, and welcome to Church and State, where we drive morality and religion over tolerance and apathy. And I'm your host, Caleb Collier, once again, your favorite far-right shock jock, and the show that talks about politics and religion. Jesus Christ is our referee, so it's always nice and clean. Real quick, point you to the website, churchandstate.media. Do a few things here. Fill out the form for us so that you can get our newsletter, and of course, a personal phone call from yours truly. Now, while you're on the website, check out our most recent episodes. We continue to bring in really interesting guests, hard-hitting interviews, and subjects that you're not seeing anywhere else. Of course, look through the featured guest page. We've had some incredible people join us over the decade that we've been doing this, and with all of those, you can click on the name. It'll lead you right to the interview. Also, peruse through the great affiliates that we have. These are companies that I support, that I personally shop with. With every single one of those, use that promo code Church and State. Many of them you'll get a discount, but regardless, you'll be helping to support us here at Church and State. And speaking of support, keep us alive on NRBTV, Prepper Broadcasting Network, so many others that we are part of. National syndication starting in August through AM/FM radio. It takes a lot of money to do what we're doing, and any support that you can send our way is appreciated, and it's used in a way to promote what we're doing here. Lastly, if you want to get a hold of us, Church and State 1776 at proton.me. With that, let's go ahead and bring on our guest. I'm pleased to bring Steve Lance to you. Steve is the executive producer of the Unbroken film. He focuses on investigative documentaries and cinematic storytelling rooted in real-world events. And we're going to be talking about the untold story of Shen. And Steve, we met at Freedom Fest. I interviewed you there. It was an absolute pleasure, but I'm so happy to have you back.
Caleb, it's a real honor. I really enjoyed our discussion, and I'm looking forward to this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I thought that we should start with the trailer, because I think a lot of my audience, a lot of Americans in general, aren't necessarily familiar with what's going on. I think they know a little bit about the Communist Chinese Party, but they need to understand what's going on with the persecution, specifically with religious minorities. So, Chris, if you could go ahead and bring up that trailer on YouTube for us, and we can show that to the audience. Go ahead, sir.
Athletes, dancers, everything.
Oh, we seem to have hit a little bit of technical difficulties there. That's all right. We'll bring that back up. But go. Yeah, go ahead, Steve. Just we'll try to get that working. But go ahead, Steve. Just tell us a little bit about what they can experience, the audience, in watching this film.
Absolutely. So Shen Performing Arts is it looks like we're still here in the trailer. Is a classical Chinese dance show that really aims to show people what China was like before communism. Their tagline is China before communism. So as you might imagine, the Chinese Communist Party has taken a particularly nefarious interest in this group and has gone to great lengths to really stifle and disturb and undermine their message. And you know, to your previous point about persecuted religious groups, Shen Yun was founded in the United States of America by a group of folks who practice a meditation discipline called Falun Dafa or Falun Gong. And you know, all things really stem from the CCP's desire to root out this practice. It became extremely popular inside of China in the early 90s, and they actually sponsored it as a cultural phenomenon. Many high-ranking officials were practicing it and getting you know, the health benefits from the meditation discipline. And when they found out the sheer number of people that were practicing it in 1998, only 6 years after it was introduced, 100 million people, that's when the dictator of China at the time, Jiang Zemin, condemned it. He labeled it as an evil cult, as an anti-China force, established a lot of propaganda to defame it, and began rounding up practitioners, subjecting them to torture, murder, forced labor, eventually forced organ harvesting. And so these folks, they didn't have the public support inside of China, obviously, because of the totalitarian nature of the CCP. But overseas, it was an unfamiliar name, so the CCP's propaganda really took root. And so these folks, when they fled communist China to the United States, took full advantage of our First Amendment, which is freedom of expression, freedom of belief, freedom of speech, and established a performing arts group to raise awareness about not just the persecution, but also what has happened to a glorious culture that took 5,000 years to establish. And so our film has sort of two tracks. One is a human interest track, where we learn about the process of these Olympic caliber performers and artists, and also an investigative track, where we explore particularly the New York Times, who has written about 12 hit pieces targeting this group, and how it aligns directly with the Chinese Communist Party's line when it comes to Shen Yun and Falun Gong.
This is so typical of really any tyrant, the amount of persecution that they want to push upon any people that are deemed outsiders or deemed problematic. And the reality is if they just paid attention to history, they would realize that persecution only allows things to grow. It actually encourages that growth. If they largely ignored it, perhaps it dies off on its own. And I see Chris. Are you telling me that it's ready to go? All right. So we're going to go ahead and play this trailer real quick for the audience, then we'll come back. Go ahead, Chris.
For athletes, dancers, everything you do has to be perfect.
Oh!
On our way to Ozzy.
Oi. My guy goes, come on, get up. We gotta do this.
Like, bring it in more. People have called us the #1 show in the world.
Lovely job, guys. Thank you.
I just hope I can continue this career for as long as I can, because I don't want anything else in the world.
But never would I have imagined what battle I joined.
Hey, buddy. You guys are okay?
There's like a huge team of people just combing the seats while we're on stage preparing for the show with dogs and stuff.
Specifically targeting Shen Yun performance.
No one wants to hear a bomb threat to the institution where your children are.
We had a sense of anticipation. We didn't know how it would go.
This is not a normal cut. This was done with the purpose of the tire exploding on the highway.
This is crazy.
These are open Chinese spy organizations.
They've gotten threats to shoot up the performance.
All the noise and all the distractions around you.
This is a machine that can be used against any American.
Why are they doing this? How much more of this are we going to be able to take? We feel like we're at war.
This is not going to stop us. We can't let it stop us.
Sound check.
What can I do to tell people our side? This tour is our chance to do it.
Doesn't matter what the obstacles are.
We're doing this together.
All right, well, there we go. I got to tell you, Steve, that looks really, really intriguing. Obviously, very, very like a very good production. And I hope that the audience can go and watch them. We'll show them how they can do that for free, actually. But tell us a little bit more about this and how you got involved.
Absolutely. So my day job is not in the film industry. I'm actually in the news business. I work at NTD, sister media to the Epoch Times, and I run our DC bureau, and I'm also the editor-in-chief for the outlet. And I started my career in the early 2000s at NTD, actually, with really taking a focus on the Chinese student and scholar associations. These are sort of student clubs on campuses throughout the United States and really around the world. Some of our best institutions have these student groups, and I started to investigate them, and what I found were some sort of concerning ties between these student groups on American college campuses and Chinese embassies and consulates in different cities. And so, what we were able to uncover then in the early 2000s, you may have heard of these Confucius Institutes. Essentially, before the Confucius Institute it began with these Chinese student groups. And so it's sort of part of the Chinese Communist Party's United Front work department, which is an apparatus that uses covert and overt measures to influence our society. And they maintain a lot of control over the student population and sort of guide them to carry out the CCP's influence operations on very key subject matters, whether it be the issue of Taiwan, U.S.-China relations, religious persecutions, because as we all know, China persecutes many, whether it be house Christians, Tibetan Buddhists, the Uyghur Muslims, of course Falun Gong, as I just mentioned. And so there are a variety of issues that the Chinese Communist Party aims to control the narrative overseas and influence our professors. So it goes beyond these student groups. And so this is what I started to explore. And then, fast forward to, the past 5 years, I've done a few exposés, if you will, showing the CCP's influence, for instance, in South Korea, one of our greatest allies. People might be shocked to know we still have over 30,000 troops committed there. We lost blood. My grandfather fought in the Korean War to end communism. And we consider them our great ally, and they still are. But there's a very concerning trend in South Korea right now in terms of their gravitating toward the Chinese Communist Party. So that was something that I had been investigating. And actually this film, Unbroken, the untold story of Shen Yun, started off as a news piece. We didn't know what we were going to get. We had seen the New York Times write 1, 2, 3, then maybe 5 hit pieces on Shen Yun. We were like, hey, let's look into this a little bit and see what's going on. And then bomb threats started to come in when they would perform at the Kennedy Center and theaters around the country. In Australia, there was a bomb threat. The Prime Minister had to be evacuated over his home over a bomb threat to the Shen Yun performance there. And so it's sort of the result of mission creep, or scope creep, if you will. And I think that your viewers would find it very interesting because it goes far beyond Shen Yun, the documentary. It's actually sort of a case study or a blueprint of how the CCP operates and can use and leverage our own institutions without them having to pick up a finger. All of the pieces are in place from the past, many decades of them infiltrating our society, where they're able to influence narratives. And then, as you know, the New York Times still has agenda-setting power, sad to say. And if they are successful in writing about things in a false way, it can trigger investigations by our agencies in the United States. And they have been doing that. They use legal warfare. They use our legal system. Foreign nationals are able to file lawsuits against American citizens and tie them up and drain their resources and muddy their reputation. So there's a variety of factors that we explore here.
Truly fascinating. I want to go back in time just a little bit here because far too few Americans know their history. And I want to ask you just a question as somebody that's expert in the field. Why do you believe the Americans wrongly supported the communists over the nationalists, going all the way back to really the close of World War II? And we decided to throw our hat in the ring with Mao instead of Shek and the nationalists who ultimately ended up in Taiwan.
I mean, that is the question of the century that brings us to where we are right now. The grossly misguided policy of thinking that China was going to reform, and by engaging them, they would become more capitalist and become like us and change their nature. I would say, the first thing that comes to mind is just the fundamental lack of understanding and awareness of what communism actually is. If you go back and look at the history of communist, regimes, nothing ever comes of it. and they're based on atheism. So the first step is uprooting any belief in the divine, in the creator, in anything spiritual. And what does that lead to? It leads to moral decay and moral rot. And so the people that you're dealing with on the other end, they actually don't think the way that we do. It's two totally different paradigms, and I think that that's actually another part of it is the American mind. You know, we're so fortunate to have grown up in this society that is based on the rule of law, inspired by the belief in God. I mean, look at our founding fathers in their writings, in their early writings. You walk around the monuments here in Washington, D.C., whether it be the Lincoln Memorial, the Jefferson Monument, all of Washington's writings constantly referring to God. You look at a communist society, it's totally different. They're taking all of that out. And so us being born and raised in America, we simply can't understand the way the communists think, because, you know, we're actually a good people, right? And that's not, this is an attack on the Chinese people, because for 5,000 years, I would say that they had similar values. But it wasn't until the communists took over and uprooted all of that. And so we're dealing with a regime that we have no idea how they think and how they operate. And just, I don't think we understand how treacherous they can be.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I formerly worked for the John Birch Society, and who I'm sure you're probably familiar with, but Robert Welch, the founder of that, named it the John Birch Society over a soldier, John Birch, who he called the first casualty in the Communist War, because the Mao's army killed John Birch. And so that's how I'm familiar with all of this history, but I truly wish more Americans were familiar with what occurred and how we betrayed the Chinese people, and ultimately a lot of these deaths and a lot of the really the things we're dealing with now, perhaps we wanted to create our own boogeyman, but a lot of things we're dealing with now has our fingerprints all over it as Americans. You brought up organ harvesting, and this is something that I think we really need to focus on, because this is such a travesty that is occurring within a lot of these persecuted religious groups in China. And there are so many people, these elitists, that are, I mean, it's literally like The Island. I think you and I talked about The Island when we were in Freedom Fest, but that movie, The Island. You're literally having these elite people that are just buying organs. They're ready to be transported. They can fly out immediately and go get a new kidney at the drop of a hat.
I really appreciate you bringing this up again, because it's a topic that really isn't served and given its proper attention when you just mention it, right? Like, it's a drive-by, like, organ harvesting. So, like, let's pull back and unpack it. This is state-sanctioned, okay, forced live organ harvesting. What does that mean? It means that this is not black market. This is not an isolated incident here or there. This is being organized at the highest levels of the Chinese government, including the PLA, the People's Liberation Army. These hospitals are run directly under their control, and they are rounding up prisoners of conscience, innocent prisoners of conscience, people of faith, and matching their blood. And then they are taking them into operating rooms, opening them up, removing their hearts, removing their livers, their corneas, and essentially what happens is they dispose of the bodies. They incinerate them, they cremate them. The family comes and says, "Where's my family member?" They say, "Oh, they committed suicide. We didn't have space for their body. Here's their ashes." Essentially getting rid of all of the evidence, no trace. And this sounds like sci-fi stuff. Again, this goes back to like communist ideology and mentality, and growing up in the United States of America in a free and open society. We can't relate to it. It's too unbelievable to imagine, but there is proof. There's proof of this happening. And it started at scale in around 2005, 2006 on these Falun Gong practitioners. There were roughly 100 million of them, and they were round up, and they were labeled as sort of a black class. And because it was an unfamiliar name, not many people knew what Falun Gong was. And of course, this was all done very secretive. And your viewers might be asking, why is it being done? Just for that. It's a huge business. And there are, people, there's something called transplant tourism, where wealthy people from the Middle East and even in the United States, I have to say, go to China for organs because, and this was sort of part of the evidence that led to this being exposed, is the transplant time in China is significantly different than any place around the world, which means only one thing. You have, and I'll tell you the timetable, it's 2 weeks. It takes roughly 2 weeks to get an organ. It took Dick Cheney, the former president of the United States, over 2 years or close to 2 years to get a heart. So in China, you can get an organ in 2 weeks, which means that they have a living, huge pool of unwilling donors. And that's just one of the things, but there's far more. There's been whistleblowers that have come out that were former surgeons in the PLA and have admitted to doing this to these people of faith. And because nothing was done when it was first exposed and came to light, it's actually been allowed to continue. It's happening to the Uyghurs in the concentration camps. They're having their organs extracted. And the latest reports that we're hearing is that it's actually happening to common citizens in China now. And it's just the most heinous crime that humanity has ever seen. And when it comes to light, which, you know, like all things do, eventually, we remember the Holocaust, this will come to light eventually as well, and it will be litigated, and the world will see it. But you're hearing it here now, sadly, that it is still ongoing.
Yeah, I would imagine the Chinese are really living under that Orwellian 1984 model. The social credit scores, all of this. There's cameras. In fact, I saw a story of a person. They were just showing their capabilities, and they released him in, I think it was Beijing, and they gave him like an hour to go and hide, and they were able to find him within like 7 minutes of releasing their teams. So it's not like these people are able to really hide in China, hide who they really are, hide their religious practices. No, the Chinese party with their surveillance state, they know exactly who they are, what they're doing, and they can round them up at any time.
Indeed, and you know, before the sort of the dawn of artificial intelligence with all this data matching and even the technological cameras that you just mentioned, which are on the next level inside of China, there's something called the hukou, which is a sort of like a green card or a passport inside of China for each province, right? So in each province, you are restricted by where you can live and work by this hukou. And so that's another way that they've, for decades, every Chinese person who's lived there knows about this thing. So that the surveillance state has been put in place in China for decades, and now with the birth of all of the new technology, it's only been amplified. And their ability to track people. I mean, I've been to China. It was a long time ago, but I still remember in the early 2000s, there were cameras everywhere. You felt like you were in the Matrix. Secret police following you in your lobby, watching you. It's really it's something that's just totally different and scary.
It truly is terrifying, and I think any American, perhaps they have concerns about the flock cameras that seems to be on a lot of people's minds these days. Well, look to China, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to know how bad it can get, China is the model, and we know this because people like Kissinger talked about China being the model. So there is this elite, even within the United States, that view China as the solution that they want to bring towards the United States.
Yeah, you know, there's sort of this talk, I don't know where it's stemming from, it just sort of came out of the blue over the past couple of months of sort of conceding the United States as the sole global superpower and talking about a multipolar world with, other regions and countries that can take the lead, particularly China being the global hegemon of the East, and the United States can stay in the West. That's probably one of the most detrimental ideas that I have ever heard. I mean, we're talking about sort of the unscrupulous nature of the Chinese Communist Party, and to sort of concede the East, thinking that they're not going to come to the West. They're already in the West. They've already penetrated our society in every way possible. They're in Hollywood. They're on Wall Street, manipulating our banks, enticing foreign investment, leveraging all of that to get their way. They're on K Street right here in Washington, D.C., lobbying on Capitol Hill. So to concede sort of power that we have over the world, or the Indo-Pacific and Taiwan, to China, I think would be a gross miscalculation of what the CCP is already capable of doing. And what you were mentioning also reminds me of the spawn of the Democratic Socialists of America, which we're starting to see really take some growth, rapid growth here. It started off as the Squad, 4 people, and now we have about 15, is it? 15 members of Congress that subscribe to this. And another sort of, I don't know if you call it an information operation or a psychological operation, but we're hearing, oh, you're so wrong. This is, you're calling them communists. You're mislabeling them. We're democratic socialists. What people need to realize is, according to the Chinese Communist Party's own constitution, they are socialists. They are constantly striving toward the end goal of communism, but they are socialists. And so I think a real serious look and upheaval in terms of what socialism has done to the world, and a history lesson needs to be taught, and we have to be on our guard not to let this ideology creep into America any further than it already has.
No, I completely agree with you, and it really doesn't matter. You can label yourself whatever you want. You can be a democratic socialist, you can be a Maoist, you can be a Nazi. People tend to forget that was socialism, that it's in the name, but it doesn't matter. You are all pushing an agenda of total control by a powerful government, a centralized government, and that flies in the face of what the United States is all about. I want to go back to something that you just said there that should terrify the audience right there. I see, the art of the deal. I see Trump wanting Greenland and Canada perhaps to create a massive union or a regional structure there. And to do something like that would mean that they would have to give some to the Chinese. And so anybody in South Korea, in Taiwan, even the Philippines, that would be under direct control of the Communist Chinese Party.
Yeah, it's interesting when we look at the map sometimes, or the globe. We look at it in a flat space, but it actually is a globe, right? So we're a lot closer to certain parts of the world from a military, perspective when it comes to war. And there are certain regions that are very vulnerable right now, especially as Russia and China continue to build their militaries in terms of strength. I have to say, though, one thing I was sort of heartened, I was a little bit concerned, but when President Trump wrapped up his last trip in Beijing, I believe it was in April, he was asked on Air Force One flying out of there about Taiwan. And the president said that, Xi Jinping asked him point blank what he would do if they were to invade Taiwan, and he held firm to that, because you might remember, it held firm in saying, he wasn't going to give him an answer, and holding that card close to his chest, which I think is critical, because, like General MacArthur said, during World War II, Taiwan is like the world's largest aircraft carrier. Granted, that
I agree, and I got to pause you real quick, Steve. We've hit that hard break, but we're going to come back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Caleb Collier with ChurchAndState.media. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're not sleeping on MyPillow, do you even patriot? I got to tell you, this is the most wonderful stuff from a man who's given it all for your freedoms. Whether it be the pillow, the sheets, or the slippers, I absolutely adore MyPillow. MyPillow has the greatest products around. I know when I want to shuffle around in my bathrobe and slippers and yell at the neighbors, of course I'm buying from MyPillow. I need you to head on over to ChurchAndState.media, scroll over to shop, because every single time that you purchase any of these products using the promo code Church and State, you ensure that we keep our message out on the air.
I thank everybody for your support in using promo code Church and State. You guys go to mypillow.com/Church and State too, and then you get your own little platform right there, everybody.
And we are back, and thank you for staying with us. You're over at ChurchAndState.media, and we're going to go right back to our guests. Real quick, I got to plug one of our great affiliates, and I'm going to go to Mark37.com. Ladies and gentlemen, look, This is so important. If some of the conversation that we're having in today's episode is a little bit terrifying to you, if you don't like the idea of being spied on, well, then get yourself a ghost phone and a ghost laptop, all right? It's what I'm using right now, a ghost laptop. I tell you, anybody that's in the fight for liberty should be having one of these devices. They are Graphene OS for the phone and Linux for the computer. We never say it's a silver bullet, but it's 100 times better than what you currently use. So go check out mark37.com. Use the coupon code Church and State for a discount and help support us. And that support is so important. One more time, hit the donate button for us. Keep us alive. Keep conversations like this happening because they are so vital in securing the blessings of liberty. All right, with that, let's go ahead and go back to our guest, Steve Lance. We're talking about Unbroken. I had to interrupt him. He was bringing up one of my heroes, perhaps somebody we should have listened to, General Douglas MacArthur. He was not on the side of supporting the communists. He saw them for what they were. But I hate interrupting my guests, but that hard break. But please continue with what you were talking about, sir.
No worries. We were just talking about how General MacArthur pointed out the significance of the island of Taiwan, labeling it as the world's largest aircraft carrier. And so to not heed the advice of one of our country's greatest generals at a time where, at that time it was in reference to our battle with Japan, but now you look at China, it's a much more formidable enemy, nuclear armed, much bigger military, our greatest adversary. Notice I don't say competitor because that's sort of a misguided term that's used often in Washington by a lot of the bureaucrats here, but they look at us. You have to look at how they view us. They openly call us their enemy, their adversary. So to concede Taiwan under those conditions, I think would be grossly misguided. And I believe that the president, from his comments on Air Force One coming out of China, realizes that. He plays four-dimensional chess, and he's not going to give Xi Jinping the pleasure of knowing one way or the other. He stays unpredictable, and I think that that is critical to maintaining the U.S.'s national security.
Yeah, I would agree for sure. We do not want to be giving up really Taiwan, South Korea. These are areas that we can combat communism. I want to go back to two things. As we got about 15 more minutes here, but I want to go back to the organ harvesting because this is such an important issue, and I want Americans to be righteously angry at this thing. I want there to be this organic groundswell from the people that would force our bureaucrats, our politicians, to take a lot more of a hard stance against allowing this to occur.
Thank you so much for that. One thing I forgot to mention, and I think if we've gotten the attention of your audience and they want to kind of understand this and how real is it, I would highly recommend Googling the London China Tribunal. Okay, that was a tribunal that was specifically held independently with some of the most credible people on the planet back in 2018. Sir Jeffrey Nice, he was the part of the Queen's Council and a prosecutor at The Hague against Slobodan Milosevic from the former Yugoslavia. He tried him. He presided over this with many credible witnesses, and it's a giant book of findings ranging from journalists at the New York Times, of all places, who were pushed out. They were living in China. They had the goods on organ harvesting. They told the newsroom that they did, and they wanted to investigate it, and they were silenced and eventually pushed out. Didi Kirsten Tatlow is that journalist. She's on the record at this London tribunal talking about it. She still has a ton of credibility after leaving the New York Times from her peers because of this. A variety of other people with the hard evidence that this crime against humanity that's almost unspeakable and unbelievable exists as we speak, and there is so much evidence to back it up. It's really incredible that it has not been pushed into the discourse more, but God bless you for bringing it up multiple times here and recognizing it for the crime and that it truly is.
What would be your recommendation for the general public? How can they bring this to greater attention, but also how can they get their representatives to take action against. I mean, this is a massive tragedy and travesty really upon the whole world.
So there is actually a bill right now. It was introduced first by Senator Marco Rubio before he became the National Security Advisor and the Secretary of State. It was then picked up by Senator Ted Cruz, multiple co-sponsors. It's a bipartisan bill. It made it through. It's passed through the House of Representatives unanimously. Every single Democrat, every single Republican. I mean, that's how serious this crime is and basic humanity, right, that everybody should have when it comes to. It is called the Falun Gong and Victims of Forced Organ Harvesting Act. And it has real teeth to sanction those that are accountable for this and hold them accountable. And also it prompts the State Department, if passed, to then make sure that there are reports and classifying this and shining a light on it on an annual basis. Because it's something that's just so sort of hard to believe. People don't even talk about it. Of course, it's the number one thing. It's the absolute third rail that the Chinese Communist Party and all of their diplomatic meetings does not want to hear brought up. And so before it even gets to that meeting, they've already gone to great lengths to make sure that this topic doesn't see the light of day. So I think the more that we talk about it, if your viewers are prompted, it is in the Senate. It may be voted on this week or this month. Put pressure on your senator to bring it out of committee, have it passed, and get it to the Senate floor, because that will send shockwaves to Beijing and will actually perhaps slow this crime from taking place. Because the Chinese, right, one thing about sort of their character and the way that they operate is they're afraid of the daylight, and there's the issue of saving face. They care how they look, their image looks on the world stage. And so by talking about these things and putting them out in the discourse, it will certainly shock them in China and perhaps scare a lot of the people now that they know they're being watched and that there are sanctions attached to these, and they could be on the hook if they continue this practice and if they're exposed. So yeah, oftentimes we think these are distant things, but just a simple phone call saying, hey, to your representative or senator, this bill means a lot, this is a crime, that could go a long way in helping them understand that and then making real change to stop these types of things from happening.
Well, I so appreciate you sharing that with the audience, and I'm going to encourage them to put that pressure on their senators, get in contact with them. That information is readily available online on how to contact your senator and get them to pass this bill, because we've got to do something. As Christians, as Americans, people who love freedom, we've got to do something against this travesty that is occurring in China against persecuted religious minorities. With that, let me go back to Shen Yang, because I'll be honest with you, I'm not the type of guy that typically likes to go see people dance. But in watching this trailer, there was beauty to it, and I fully acknowledge that the skills that they have in doing these backflips and a lot of these different dance moves, it's incredible to watch. So I'm going to encourage the audience to go. I know that they travel, there's tours, but they can also watch this film, and we're going to bring up a way for the audience to watch this film for free. But please tell people why they should go and see the film, and then also see one of these tours that's coming to a city near you.
It's funny you mention it. I'll tell you a funny story. So I often joke when people ask me about Shen Yun, because I've seen it now after embedding with the group for over a year and getting to know them quite well. In my personal family, right, we have, the spectrum. We have, people just like you that aren't interested in dance per se. I have some folks that are classical dancers or ballroom dancers, and both sides of the spectrum have actually seen it, and so the ones that are classically trained or have an eye for dance or enjoy it absolutely loved it, and then the other side of my family that are hockey players that typically might not go to a performance, they actually loved it too, because it goes beyond dance. It's extremely well done. It's entertaining. It has an animated backdrop. It transports you to different places in China. It's educational. It's inspirational. And I think one thing that sort of struck me most in making the film that sort of separated these folks, and I think it comes out on stage, is they're not there just to perform and, you know, with the ego of being the best and, you know, making money and being famous. These are people that are actually have a very unique mission, and it goes back to the organ harvesting. You know, I think it's over 90 of the folks involved in Shen Yun have family members that have been directly persecuted for their faith inside of China. So what they're doing on stage is bringing out an awareness and a passion that surpasses all of sort of the things that, you know, we all kind of strive for and desire, and you can really feel that positive passion. And so for that reason, I think that most people would greatly enjoy watching a Shen Yun performance.
I'm gonna see it. Did you do your homework on me? You brought up hockey. My son plays hockey. I'm a hockey guy. I'm like, you brought up hockey of all the sports. So I mean, and it's a great sport. But I will encourage the audience to go and watch this, regardless of where you're at. If you're on the one spectrum of I don't do dance, or the other spectrum of this is beauty, this is art, I encourage people to watch this because, as you just said, it's about the persecution. It's about what China could be, what China used to be, and the beauty of what the Chinese had, and the contributions to history, to the world that the Chinese have had a part of, that is now all being suppressed.
Indeed, and that's just it. You just honed right in on it. The tagline of Shen Yun is China before communism. But what scares the CCP most, of course, the first step is educating folks of what your culture was like before communism took over. But the prospect of what China could be like without communism is really, you know, it's existential to the CCP. And you know, I found it interesting going to the Shen Yun performances and talking to audience members that would walk out and file out. Now, of course, it's not geared toward any ethnicity. The vast majority of people actually are not ethnic Chinese. So if you're in America, it's mostly Americans that will come in and watch and enjoy it. But talking to some of the mainland Chinese folks that have immigrated here, who spent decades of being brainwashed in China, they're still a little bit hesitant. They still kind of get confused. Is, you know, China and the CCP the same thing? They've brought so much advancement there, and so on and so forth. After 2 hours of watching a Shen Yun performance, folks that have been indoctrinated by the CCP want to completely disassociate themselves with the Chinese Communist Party and align with American values. And so from a soft power perspective, for the United States, this isn't just about China. This is actually something that is very beneficial to our country when you can change hearts and minds and point them in the right direction to what is righteous. It's always a good thing.
Absolutely. Once again, I completely agree there. Chris, if you could bring up the website of how the audience can go and watch this for free, NTDfilms.com is the website, ladies and gentlemen, NTDfilms.com. You can see it right there, Unbroken. There's also a number of other documentaries that people can watch there as well, correct, sir?
Yes, sir. NTD Films, it houses a lot of other films, independent films that we've done as well, that I think your audience would greatly enjoy. And if you have a preferred platform, the film is available on Apple, Amazon, YouTube, and other places as well, but this is where you can watch it for free.
Well, I so appreciate your time, your work here, having the audience being able to see this film, this very important film, for free, goes to prove, that you're not in it for the money. You're in it for freedom, to expose what's going on in China with this organ harvesting and the persecution against these religious minorities. It's been a real pleasure having you on the show, sir. It's good to see you again, and I look forward to having you back because this is a subject that's not going to go away.
Thank you so much, Caleb. Really appreciate it.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and close this out. If you hold on one more minute post-production to say our goodbyes, I'd appreciate it. But again, thank you for joining us on Church and State. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. I got to tell you, if there's some kind of a film or art or dance in this case that is freedom-oriented and they're getting bomb threats and people are threatening to shoot up the place, I got to tell you, that's something that I want to see. Church and State is brought to you in part by Colonial Life Spokane Independent Agents, Finders Insurance, and Mark37.com. I'm Caleb Collier. I was born for a storm.
Welcome to the fire.
Hey, this is Caleb Collier with Church and State, and I want to tell you about methylene blue. For a long time now, you've seen the Maha people using methylene blue. I thought I'd give it a try. You know what? It helped me considerably, not only with mental clarity, but also with insomnia. Now, you got to be careful with methylene blue because the market is filled with counterfeit products. But Best 365 Labs is the greatest methylene blue on the market. I'm telling you, take this stuff, enjoy the benefits, and it'll also have a little bit of fun when going to the bathroom. I need you to go to best365labs.com and use that promo code Church and State. You're going to get a discount. You'll also be helping to support Church and State and our pursuit of truth. Hey, this is Caleb Collier with Church and State. I'm here to tell you about Hunter's Blend Coffee. I got to tell you, I absolutely love this stuff. I'm all about the dark roast. Hunter's Blend Coffee, black powder. Doesn't that just sound like deliciousness and rebellion? I got to tell you, in America, we don't drink tea. No, we drink coffee. It's the food of the gods, and I endorse and support Hunter's Blend Coffee. Got to tell you, it tastes like freedom. So I need you to go over to churchandstate.media, scroll to Hunter's Blend Coffee, and use the promo code Church and State to help support us. And when you go to huntersblendcoffee.com, not only will you be getting a great cup of coffee, but you also, if you use the promo code Church and State, be supporting Church and State and our dogged pursuit of truth. Hey, this is Caleb Collier with Church and State, and I want to tell you about Patriot Pouch. Look, if you're one of these individuals that's interested in nicotine and potentially the health benefits from it, but you're concerned about some of the side effects, Patriot Pouch might be your answer. This is a company that uses nixidine instead of nicotine. It hits the same nicotine receptors in your brain, but without those side effects like elevated heart rate or elevated blood pressure. So if you want the health benefits of nicotine without nicotine, Patriot Pouch may be the company for you. I need you to go to patriotpouchusa.com. Use the promo code Church and State. You'll get a great nicotine replacement, and you'll be helping to support Church and State and everything that we do here. And remember, when you go to patriotpouchusa.com, not only are you supporting a Christian patriot business owner, but you're helping to support Church and State.